All right. So it's Friday afternoon, and we're very happy to be launching a new kind of webinar, which we call the Spotlight. And the reason we call it the Spotlight is because we wanted to literally spotlight some of the interesting things that we can consider in not just the subjects, but also in the teaching of the subjects related to language, drama, and communication skills. And today we thought we'd kick off this series, and we'd like to ideally do a spotlight once every month. And I'm going to ask you at the end of this also to share your thoughts on what you think you'd like us to spotlight, or other things that you think we can talk about, which could be much broader than just the syllabus or the exam-related tasks or learning outcomes. It could be something connected with our subject, but which is not directly in the syllabus, but yet nonetheless affects what we do and how we teach it. So hence, welcome and good afternoon to our first Spotlight edition, where today we take a deeper look at the prosodic features in drama and poetry. And today I have the pleasure of introducing a colleague of mine for the very first time to all of you. I'd like you to welcome Unnati Ved. Unnati. So as Unnati switches on, let me just tell you a little bit about her. There she is. All right. So Unnati is coming to you from Hyderabad. Now she's got quite a lot going for her. To start with, she's the founder of Eager Readers, which is a language and drama school for children as well as for teachers. She is also a colleague of mine. She's an academic consultant with Trinity College London. Unnati holds an ATCL in speech and drama, is in the midst of completing her LTCL, has a Cert DSOL in teaching English language, and is currently completing her DIP DSOL, which is a level 7 or a master's in language teaching. And of course, if that isn't enough, Unnati also has a master's in banking and finance and an MBA in finance as well. Suffice to say that the world is full of interesting people and interesting things to do. And from finance and banking to drama and performance and prosody, that's the leap we are making this afternoon. And without making a further ado, I'd like to hand the session over to Unnati as she takes you through a very fascinating element, which we consider it as an independent area of study, but yet affects us, each and every one, every day of our lives in everything that we say. Unnati, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dale. Thank you for the warm welcome. A very warm welcome to all you teachers out there and colleagues who have logged in for this session today. I would first like to start by extending season's greetings and wish you all a very Merry Christmas in advance, and hope you have a great holiday week that's coming up for you. Having said that, today we are going to be covering the prosodic features in drama and poetry. And before we go into what I'm going to cover and how I'm going to cover it, let us first look at the first aspect, which is features of pronunciation. Now, please do let me know. I have not checked on my audio, so I hope I am audible to all of you. If not, do let me know via chat.
Unnati, you're good.
Excellent. So the features of pronunciation. Now, there are two features of pronunciation that are very prominent. One is the phonemes, which is the consonant and vowels, and they pretty much focus on the sounds that the alphabets make. And the other segment is the suprasegmental features, which is the intonation, stress aspect of pronunciation. This is what we will be focusing on today, the suprasegmental features of pronunciation. To define prosody or the prosodic features, they are those aspects of speech which go beyond the phonemes and deal with the auditory qualities of sound. So this is what we are going to cover in the prosodic features. We will look at some practical ways in which you can use some exercises with your students and work on raising awareness around intonation, stress, and rhythm. So before we get into the detailed aspects of intonation, stress, and rhythm, and before we work on some of the practical examples, here is a famous proverb for you. It's not what you say, but the way you say it. What do I mean by this? Please type your responses in the chat. It's not what you say, but the way you say it. So I can see that responses are coming in. And I see somebody said tone, Ashima. Yes. Anything else? Excellent. Stress on words, emotions, absolutely. So a lot of you have said, voice modulation, it's the feeling behind the words. All of you have said something very similar to what I have in mind as well. It's not the choice of words that convey the speaker's intention, but rather the manner in which the words are said. The way we speak depends on many things, like how you all have put it across: gesture, expression, voice quality. But like all you excellent teachers put up the word tone first, that is the most significant factor amongst the others, intonation. So what is intonation technically? If we were to define it technically, intonation refers to the patterns of pitch change over an utterance or a series of utterances. I'm going to give you now a practical example of how we can use an exercise using poetry or poem to raise awareness among intonation patterns and how to use intonation, right? So what I have done today is I have got you a very short poem, and you could actually get, if you do this with your learners, you can take any poem, but do not expose the poem to your learners in advance or give a handout in advance. Another example or another way in which you can bring this poem out forward is to not give it in verse form, but to change and give the entire poem like it is in a paragraph form without revealing the verse. Okay, there is a method to this madness. There's a reason why I have done it this way. So I have also done the very same with you. I have taken this poem. Hang on, let me just take you there, which is called Plums by Carlos Williams Carlos. And I have kept the punctuations intact, but I have removed the verse form of the poem and I have bunched it up in the form of a paragraph. All right. Now, let's see if we can make some sense groups out of this poem. Not nonsense groups, sense groups. All right. So I will ask you a question, and maybe Dale, you can tell me if this works and if this is making a sense group to you or is it making a nonsense group to you. I have eaten the. Is this a sense group or a nonsense group?
So
Dale,
to
would you
me,
like to
it
help?
is, yeah, so to me, it is a nonsense group. And I think even Dipti, Jitesh, Trupti, Manya, Nipur all say nonsense.
Excellent, great. Yeah, simple enough. You can just ask your learners that let's make sense groups out of these group of words. You don't even have to tell them this is a poem at the start. Okay, let it be a mystery. All right. Have I eaten the plums? Sense group, nonsense group? What do you think? Yes, Dipti, correct, sense. So I'm going to use my annotation feature here, and I'm going to actually create a line here and make a sense group here on my own. All right. Now let's have a volunteer. Dale, since I can hear you, what do you think could be the next sense group?
to my mind, that were in the ice box would be the next sense group.
Absolutely. Now, remember, guys, everybody, there are no hard and fast rules here, but there is also a punctuation mark here that gives you a very clear indication of a sense group coming up, ending at ice box. All right. So that were in the ice box. The next sense group, Dale, what do you think it should be?
So here I'm actually of two minds. I think it could end at saving. And I think it could also be clubbed together and go right up till for breakfast.
Yes. So one would be, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. But somebody who likes a more dramatic effect could also say, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Okay. Because if we choose, if you were probably saving, the for breakfast becomes a nonsense group. All right. And we cannot extend a nonsense group beyond the punctuation, which is the full stop in this case. So we could either have, and which you were probably saving for breakfast, which gives a slightly more dramatic effect to the whole sentence. But we can also go with, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. All right. So I'm going to go with the longer one. But remember, as I said, there are no hard and fast rules. It's literally what makes sense to you. Okay, keeping the punctuations intact and making sure that they work for you when you're making your sense group. All right, the next one. Which one? What do you think?
Forgive me.
Absolutely. And as I said earlier, there is a very clear indication of a comma, which gives you the sense group.
They were delicious. All right. I think Dipti Jitesh is bang on. She's getting all of them also. So sweet and so cold.
All right. So this again, the no hard and fast rule, it can be so sweet and so cold, or it can be so sweet and so cold. All right. So we'll go with this one. Okay, so I'm just going to stop the share and reshare with you right now, because I will have to make sure, okay, or actually better yet, let me just erase the annotation and take you to, I've marked it for you in advance so that we can work from there. So this is simple enough, isn't it? You ask your learners to make sense groups out of a poem. And now let's highlight some of the content words that are there in this poem. So what could be the content words? Like I'm going to start with eaten. So Dale, what do you think in I have eaten the plums? Do you think there is any other content word that needs to be highlighted?
Plums, according to me.
Yes, why not? And the rest of the teachers in the next, let's do it with you guys now, that were in the ice box. You have a sense group here. What do you think should be the content word? Absolutely correct. Ice box. Okay. And which you were probably saving for breakfast. What should be the content words here? Saving. Okay. Breakfast. Okay. Anyone for probably? Yes. Okay. Shilpa says probably. So why not? Okay. Remember, no hard and fast rules here. The only rule or understanding that maybe you need to have is that probably the determiners or probably the linking words are not usually the content words. Or the content words are most of the times the words that convey the meaning in the sentence, and you all have identified the content words very appropriately. All right, the next one, forgive me. What would be the content word? Yes, forgive. They were delicious. What would be the content word? Yes, Dipti, correct. Delicious. So sweet and so cold. Yes. and cold, right? Perfect, guys. Perfect. All right. So now that we have our content words, I'm erasing this is because I have marked it for you in the next slide. So once you have your content words, you can ask your learners to read this line, stressing on those content words. Okay. So let's look at the next slide. And I'm going to read the first sense group by highlighting on those words, and there is a specific reason why I have underlined rather eat and not eaten, which I will work on when we come to word stress. But at this point, you can just take it like eaten has been underlined. So I'm going to highlight on this, and then Dale, maybe you could help me with the next sense group and stress on the highlighted word. I have eaten the plums
that were in the ice box.
Okay, that were in the ice box. Excellent. And now my turn again. And which you were probably saving for breakfast.
Forgive me.
They were delicious. And you can complete the rest.
So sweet and so cold.
All right. So this is what you can do. And when you speak with these content words and highlight them, this is the point where you want to stop the class and you want to ask them, what do you understand by this poem? Listening to the content words and by stressing on the content words that were underlined here. All right. So you can also, like, for example, if the content word underlined here, for example, was not probably, and it was only saving and breakfast, the meaning might slightly change. For example, I have eaten the plums that were in the ice box, which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. Can you see my pitch is varying with the stress on the content words? And you can probably interpret how the meaning changes, if at all, when the content words change. So this is one way, one part of raising awareness of how intonation and stressing on content words can bring out the meaning of the poem. So when I did this with my learners, when they saw the poem without making sense groups, without highlighting the content words, they thought that it was they thought it was a nonsense poem. But suddenly, without even giving them an explanation on the poem, we divided the poem into sense groups, highlighted the content words, and then read it out loud with, stressing on the content words. The meaning was suddenly, the meaning that came out of the poem was suddenly much better without even actually having us to explain it. All right. Now, this, coming to the technical aspect of prosody, what we have actually done is that this sense group in prosody is known as a tone unit. All right. And I have eaten the plums is one tone unit. Sometimes in a sentence, you may have two words or syllables that are highlighted as content words, like in this particular tone unit. But if you see the second example, we have highlighted only one word as a content word. No hard and fast rules here. But the aspect that what you need to understand is how does the pitch change when you have one content word in a tone unit and when you have two or more content words in a tone unit. So the first stressed word in a tone unit, when there are more than two content words, becomes the onset syllable. And what I mean by the onset syllable is that you see that the pitch takes the pitch starts changing with the onset syllable. And you can hear me now. I have eaten the plums. I have eaten the plums. If you see, my pitch has taken off from the word eaten and has landed on a higher pitch with plums. But it's definitely not on the same pitch as I have. I have eaten the plums, right? So this is not something that probably you may or may not want to explain this to your learners, depending on their age and their level. But this is for your, and as a teacher, to understand that a sense group is a tone unit. If there are more than one content words within it, the first content word that is highlighted is the onset syllable, and it sets the tone of the pitch, right? And the most stressed word in a tone unit is known as the tonic syllable. And that is why I have written it in capital letters to show you that they are the most stressed in the tone unit. And it is usually, yes, it is usually the case that it will always be the last content word that will carry more weightage. All right. But now the question, so this is your raising awareness activity on how intonation can be used to bring out the meaning using poetry. All right. Let's move on to the next segment now, which is stress. When I work on an example of the stress, you will understand better why is it that I broke up the words ice box and why was I giving more importance to ice and not box. All right. So the stress is made up of two kinds of stress. One is word stress and second is sentence stress. But before I go into the definition of word stress and sentence stress, I would like to first highlight an important point to you, that English language is a stress-timed language. It is not a syllable-timed language. What I mean by that is that when we read something in the English language, it's not necessary that we pronounce it exactly as the way we read it. If we were to read a Hindi word, then whatever we read is exactly the way we pronounce. That is not the case in English. In English, the entire language is a stressed timed language. And what do I mean by this? I have two examples for you here. Look at the word playwright. If you concentrate on the way we say words, there'll always be a part of a syllable that is stressed more than the other part. Playwright. It's computer. It's not computer. It's not computer. It is computer. So if you see where I have kept the big oval is where the stress comes. And this is what I mean when I say that English is a stress-timed language and not a syllable-timed language. And now I'm going to go back to the slide of the poem. And here is what I want to say, that when we have words like, if you see eaten, icebox, breakfast, forgive, probably, delicious, so sweet and so cold. Now, in order to get a complete hang on this, you'll have to learn phonology. But if you do not, if you've not done phonology and you've not done your master's in phonology, then how do you tackle this? The beautiful part is that in our, when we learn English, we learn these patterns right from the time we grow up. So it is a natural phenomenon. It's just that we don't realize it. but it greatly helps. The awareness of this greatly helps when we do poetry, when we do drama, because it brings out the effect of our dialogues. It brings out the effect of the way we say poems a lot better, and we are able to convey the meaning of the text in a much better way. Okay. Now let's move on to stress, and you've already seen word stress. So word stress is which part of the syllable is highlighted when you speak. Word stress is the term used to describe the accent or emphasis given to a particular syllable or word. And a sentence stress is what we did with the poem, where we highlighted a specific content word so that we could bring out the meaning of what we want to say. All right. Let us look at an example of an activity that you can do where you can highlight the sentence stress, where you can make the learner understand that how by stressing on one particular word, the meaning of that sentence changes. All right. So I'm going to pick up, I have taken a very simple word, simple sentence here. And I have given you the interpretation of the meaning for the first one. So the sentence is, without stressing on anything, I don't think he should get the job. And if I were to stress, I don't think he should get the job. What is the meaning? It means somebody else thinks he should get the job. I don't think that, but somebody else thinks that. Okay. Now I have highlighted the word don't. Okay, so I'm going to stress on that when I say the sentence. What I would like you to do is to write down, what do you think it means? Okay, so hang on. And I don't think he should get the job. What do you think this means? And please type it in the chat. So I see Dipti saying, I'm giving my opinion. Okay. I don't think he should get the job. Speaker's opinion. Okay. Let's see. So it basically means it's not true that I think he should get the job. I don't think he should get the job. It is a speaker's opinion. All right. Let's look at the next one. I don't think he should get that job. How does the meaning change slightly? I don't think he should get the job. He should get that job. That there is a room of doubt. That's not really what I mean. Or I'm not sure he'll get that job. Absolutely. It means that I'm raising a doubt. Well done, guys. Let's look at the next one. I don't think he should get that job. How is it changing the meaning now? I don't think he should get that job. Exactly, Valerie. I don't think he should get the job, but maybe somebody else should get the job. Absolutely. Somebody else should get that job. And the last one, I don't think he should get that job. How does this change the meaning? When I say the modal verb should, I am making it sound like an obligation, like like it's necessary. I don't think he should get that job. Somebody else should get that job. Exactly, guys, undeserving. All right. So this is one of the ways you can raise sentence stress awareness amongst your learners by highlighting, and believe me, this works with any sentence. Typically any sentence, which is like an opinion. Once you have an opinionated sentence and you change the stress, when you put the stress on different words, the meanings will change slightly. And it is a great activity to do with learners. And I have done this activity with my 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds to make them understand how important it is to stress on the right word when you are performing a poem or performing a drama piece or an extract, so as to convey the meaning appropriately. So here is an example of how to use the sentence stress with your learners. And this again ties up very beautifully back to our example of the poem, where there was no hard and fast rule on what the content words should be. And you can experiment it in your class by not highlighting, delicious and highlighting sweet and cold, and see if there is any meaning change. And it's wonderful when, you become the facilitator in the class and your students sort of take over and they sort of start having a meaningful interaction with each other and debating with each other on the meaning, and that's where the true learning happens. Because it is about deliberation, and it is about discussion, and it is about when students meaningfully interact with each other, that they will get deeper into the subject, isn't it? So that's something that maybe you would want to try out in your class. Okay, let's look at now the next part of sentence stress. And here is another example that I'm going to take you through of how you can use sentence stress using a monologue or an extract from a play. So listening is a very great aspect in identifying sentence stress. Okay, and I have done this many a times by taking a extract from a play, a performed play, and making my learners listen to the audio text of the performance, taking the visual element out, and they only listen to the audio text of the play. The reason I take out the visual element is because the visual element can distract them and they will not focus on the sentence stress. So here's an exercise for you. If you do not have access to the audio text, then you can even read the monologue out, but you need to read it out using the correct stress on the words that you want the learners to stress on. So listening activity provides a very useful opportunity for a sentence stress recognition. Let's say you take a monologue from a play and it is necessary to have a transcript of that monologue in hand. All right. So give out the transcript to the students without any highlights or without anything marked. Of course, it has the cues and it has the dialogues, and it is basically like a script. And you play the audio version of this transcript. The first time they listen to the audio version of the transcript, have your learners mark out where is the stress in each sentence. Where do you think is the actor who has performed the monologue? Which words is he stressing on? And then so as they are hearing it, they can highlight the words that are being stressed on, right? Play the extract the second time and make sure that it includes suitable pauses to give students time for the stresses. So the first time they do it, they won't be able to mark all the stresses, is because it's also suddenly a new audio text is being thrown at them. So their ears need to get comfortable to listen to the exercise. So the second time you play it, you may want to stop and play, and you can then have them complete their highlights of the stress words, and then break them into pairs, have them compare the stresses, and listen to the monologue again to check if they missed out on any. Now, I highly recommend the pairing and the grouping and listening and checking the monologue on their own without the interference of the teacher, is because this is where the true learning happens, when they meaningfully interact with each other. And they are also, remember, listening to this monologue the third time. So they are also, getting into the groove of the character, because this is the third time that they are listening to it. Now, the last part of this activity is that the class then goes through the transcript, marks the stresses using an annotation on an overhead projector and discuss it together. So now they do the activity together. If you are, and it's an online activity, then you share the screen and they can all annotate together. This is how checking can happen unanimously in the class. All right. And a final hearing of the monologue shows and confirms the result on screen. And you can then have them perform this individually with the highlighted words already present on the overhead projector. And you have a very fun class there. All right. So this is another example of how to use sentence stress and how to use it in drama. All right. We are now coming to the last segment, which is rhythm. Now, rhythm as a concept is not the same as, when a learner says a poem in a sing-song voice. That is not rhythm that I'm talking about. The rhythm that I am talking about is the rhythm in phonetics. It is the sense of movement in speech marked by the stress, timing, and quantity of syllables. So again, linking this back to the poem that we did on the Plums by William Carlos, when we divided them into sense groups, we were also setting the rhythm, all right, by marking the stress, by pausing, by stressing on, the correct word, the correct syllable in the word, like ice box, movement. We are also setting the rhythm in that sense. It is not intonation, Gauri, but rhythm is a sense of movement in speech which encompasses intonation, stress, timing, and quantity of syllables. So the best way to understand rhythm is to think of notes in music. Okay, you will know that there is a beat and a tone in music that happens. I have taken a very simple example here. Can you see? I have shown you notes that the piano notes of a very famous nursery rhyme, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And if you can see, the notes are actually cutting through the words, isn't it? If you see the word twinkle, it's actually cutting through twinkle and it is breaking it up into two. Okay. And if you see below the notes, I am going to highlight this using my spotlighter and show it to you. I have shown you bars here, like a graph, like a bar chart almost. Okay. This is what I mean by rhythm. Okay. The entire nursery rhyme is broken into these segments of long, short, long, short, long, short, long. And now you will see these are your intonation patterns actually. They go up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And I'm going to show you. So the confusing part here is that how there are only 4 words here and why are there not 4 bars here instead? Okay, so look at the notes. I'm going to move my annotation up. Look at the notes here and look at the movements of my hand, and you will know what I mean by these bars. Okay, so when this is a long bar, it's going to be up and it's going to be down if it's a short bar. Okay, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. And this is what is rhythm. if you see, it follows the same pattern as the notes. All right. And how does this help you? It helps you when you have an A1, A2 learners. That means you're just starting out and you want them to understand the rhythm of English language. That's how nursery rhymes work beautifully. And you can show this. I, in fact, show this bar chart to my learners, and then they know exactly how to cut through the words and show the stress beautifully when they say their nursery rhymes. Rhythms also work in a more complicated fashion with Shakespeare's monologues. Shakespeare loved to use the iambic pentameter, which was a 5-fold pentameter for his dialogues. To be or not to be, that is the question. Hamlet's famous soliloquy had this wonderful iambic pentameter that was used, but it's the pentameter works on the heartbeat rhythm. To get started, nursery rhymes, most of the nursery rhymes work on this rhythmic pattern, and you can use this as a starting point to make sure that they understand the rhythm of the language. So if you are confused, you can take the musical notes and you can work with those. All right. So, yep, this is what I have for you today. The 3 different activities on intonation, stress, word stress, sentence stress, and finally rhythm. I'm going to stop my share now, and I'm going to take in some questions for you. Hope you enjoyed this short webinar, and you're going to have some takeaways that you can work with your students with. And once again, thank you, Dale, for inviting me to this lovely webinar. All right, so I see that there are some questions that are coming up. So Ashima, I'm going to take your question. Sometimes when students perform a poem, it sounds like a prose. They don't do sing-song. How can we help them? All right, so they are not, so Ashima, firstly, a poem should not be said in a sing-song way. The example that I gave you of the nursery rhyme has a tune to it, but not necessary that all poems have a tune to it. So they should not be saying it in a sing-song way. However, you can work with the sense groups examples which I gave you and have them make sense groups of their own, and then use intonations to see where should they be stressing on, and then have them say the poem using those content words and stressing on those words. Tweak it, change the content words. If you and the student think that, no, this is not how I want to convey the meaning of the poem, and I should rather stress on this word instead. So this is how you could help them. Anybody else? Dale, are you there? Hello.
Yes, I'm here. All right, so brilliant session, exceedingly interesting, as I'm sure from all the questions and the very detailed explanation that you've given. I mean, I want to say a big thank you to you. Teachers, any other questions before we wrap up and close?
Should we discuss so I'm going to read Trupti's question. Should we discuss the idea of the monologue before going ahead with the stress marking? Yes, it's very important to set the stage and to make them understand. It's also great to do a little bit of a pre-reading activity. If the monologue is a Shakespeare monologue, definitely you want to make them aware of what kind of prose they are going to be looking at. Is it Elizabethan prose that they are going to work on? Also some, what is the age group? What is the background? What is the setting? Yes, you must do all these things before you get, before you're going into the monologue.
All right, thank you very much, everybody, and also thank you, Nidhi. I'm just going to actually very quickly put a feedback form in the chat, which I've just done.